No escape behind bars. The deadly reality of life inside America's toughest federal prisons. Welcome to the darkest side of America's prison system. Inside these walls, survival is not guaranteed. Every story you hear is real, raw, and deeply unsettling. Stay with us as we uncover what really happens behind bars. The prison yard was crowded that afternoon. More than 100 inmates stood outside beneath a clear sky. Some walked laps around the track. Others lifted weights. A few sat alone on benches, trying to pass the time. From a distance, it looked normal. But inside one corner of the yard, something was about to happen that would leave officers, inmates, and investigators talking about it for years. A man in a gray prison uniform walked slowly across the concrete. He kept his head down. He looked tired. Nothing about him stood out. He was not the biggest inmate in the yard. He was not the loudest. He was not known for causing trouble. Yet several pairs of eyes were watching his every move. They had been watching him for days, waiting patiently. The inmate stopped near a fence and looked toward the housing units. That was when 3 other men started moving. At first, nobody paid attention. Men walked around the yard all day. Nothing seemed unusual. But these 3 were different. They moved with purpose. They stayed close together, and they never took their eyes off their target. An officer standing in a tower noticed them. Something felt wrong. Years of working inside federal prisons had taught him to trust his instincts. He picked up his radio. Before he could say a word, everything exploded. The first attacker reached the inmate from behind. The second blocked his path. The third pulled out a homemade weapon. The blade flashed in the sunlight. Then, chaos erupted. Inmates scattered in every direction. Some dropped to the ground. Others ran. Shouts filled the yard. Officers screamed orders through loudspeakers. The victim tried to fight back. For a few seconds, he managed to stay on his feet. Then, the attackers overwhelmed him. He fell hard onto the concrete. The assault continued. The men showed no hesitation, no fear, no mercy. This was not a spontaneous fight. This was not an argument. This was something planned, something ordered. The victim's movements became slower, weaker. Around him, dozens of inmates watched in stunned silence. Many had seen violence before. Federal prisons are dangerous places, but even they knew this attack was different. The message was clear. Someone wanted everyone in that yard to see what happened. The tower officer activated the emergency alarm. The sound echoed across the prison. Additional staff rushed toward the scene. Armed officers appeared along the perimeter. The attackers finally stepped back. They dropped their weapons. Then they lay face down on the ground, almost as if they knew exactly what would happen next. Medical staff arrived within moments. They pushed through groups of frightened inmates. The victim was still breathing, barely. Staff worked desperately to save him, but many already knew the truth. His chances were almost gone. The yard fell silent, a strange silence, the kind that follows something terrible. Inmates stared at the concrete. Officers secured the area. Investigators began taking photographs. Evidence markers appeared one by one. Nobody spoke much. Nobody needed to. Everyone understood what they had witnessed. The victim was rushed away. The attackers were taken into custody. The prison immediately entered lockdown. Every inmate was ordered back into his cell. Metal slammed shut across the institution. Metal echoed through hallways. For the next several hours, nobody moved freely. The prison became a giant concrete box filled with questions. Who was the victim? Why was he targeted? Who gave the order? And, perhaps most important of all, could it happen again?
Inside federal prisons, violence rarely appears without warning. Most attacks have a reason: a debt, a betrayal, a gang dispute, a violation of prison rules. Sometimes the truth is known only to a handful of people. Sometimes the truth stays hidden forever. Investigators from the prison's Special Investigative Services Unit began working immediately. They reviewed camera footage, they collected statements, they searched cells, they interviewed witnesses. Yet the deeper they looked, the stranger the case became. The victim was not considered a major gang leader. He was not one of the most feared inmates in the prison. He had spent years trying to avoid attention. That fact only created more questions. If he was not powerful, why had someone gone to such lengths to eliminate him? Hours later, rumors started spreading through the housing unit. In prison, rumors travel faster than official information. One inmate claimed the victim owed money. Another said he had disrespected a gang member. Someone else whispered that he had shared information with investigators. No one knew what was true, but everyone knew one thing: the attack had been too organized to be random. As darkness fell outside the prison walls, investigators gathered in a secure office. Photographs covered the table. Reports were stacked high. The atmosphere was tense. One investigator pointed toward a surveillance image. The attackers appeared calm even before the assault began, almost confident, as if they believed they had permission. That observation changed everything, because in many federal prisons, major acts of violence require approval, not from prison officials, from gang leadership. The possibility was alarming. If gang leaders had ordered the attack, then this case was larger than a single murder. It could involve a network operating inside multiple prisons, a network capable of issuing orders across state lines, a network capable of deciding who lived and who died. The investigators continued working through the night. Then they discovered something unexpected. Just days before the attack, the victim had received several messages. The messages appeared ordinary at first, but hidden within them were strange patterns: names, numbers, references that seemed meaningless, until investigators realized they might be coded communications. Suddenly, the case took a darker turn. What if the victim knew something? What if he became a threat? And what if powerful people inside the prison wanted to make sure he never spoke again? The answers were buried somewhere behind layers of loyalty, fear, and silence. But investigators were about to learn that this killing was only the beginning.
Because while they searched for the truth behind one execution, another dangerous situation was already unfolding inside the prison. And within days, a second inmate would be attacked. This time, the victim would survive long enough to reveal a secret that could expose one of the most dangerous realities inside America's toughest federal prisons. A secret that many people were willing to kill to protect. The lockdown had been in place for 3 days. Every movement inside the prison was controlled. Meals were pushed through narrow slots in steel doors. Showers were limited. Recreation time was canceled. The entire institution felt tense. Officers walked the corridors more often than usual. Investigators worked around the clock. Yet despite all their efforts, they still had very few answers. The inmate who had been attacked on the yard was dead. The 3 attackers refused to speak. Witnesses claimed they saw nothing, and prison gangs maintained their wall of silence. Then something happened, something nobody expected. Another inmate was found injured. It happened early in the morning. An officer making routine rounds noticed movement near the showers inside one of the housing units. At first, he thought someone had slipped, but as he got closer, he saw blood. A man was lying on the floor. His prison shirt was soaked. His breathing was fast and uneven. His hands trembled. The officer immediately called for emergency assistance. Within seconds,
Emergency alarms sounded throughout the unit. Additional staff rushed to the scene. The injured inmate was still conscious, barely. His eyes darted around the room. He looked terrified, not because of his injuries, because of who might come next. Medical staff stabilized him and moved him to the prison hospital. The wounds were serious, but unlike the victim from the yard attack, this inmate survived. For investigators, that changed everything. A dead man cannot answer questions. A living one can. The problem was getting him to talk. When investigators first entered his hospital room, he refused to look at them. His hands shook. His voice barely worked. Every few seconds, he glanced toward the door. It was obvious he was afraid. One investigator sat quietly beside him. No threats, no pressure, just patience. Minutes passed, then nearly an hour. Finally, the inmate spoke. "They know." The investigator leaned forward. "Who knows?" The inmate swallowed hard. "They know I talked to him." The room became silent. The investigator asked another question. "Talked to who?" The inmate closed his eyes. "The guy they killed." For the first time since the yard attack, investigators felt they were getting close to the truth. The injured inmate explained that he had known the victim for several years. They were not best friends, but they talked regularly. They shared meals, walked the yard together, discussed prison life. Nothing unusual. At least that was what everyone believed. Then things changed. Several months earlier, new inmates arrived at the prison. Many came from other federal facilities. Several had connections to powerful prison gangs. Their arrivals shifted the balance of power. Old rivalries returned. New alliances formed. Tensions grew. The prison became more dangerous. The victim had noticed it. So had the survivor. According to the injured inmate, certain gang leaders seemed nervous, paranoid. They began holding secret meetings, passing messages more frequently, watching people more closely. At first, nobody understood why. Then, rumors started spreading. Someone had been sharing information, sensitive information, information that could hurt powerful people. The rumors terrified everyone. Inside federal prisons, being labeled an informant can be deadly. Whether the accusation is true or false often does not matter. The label alone can become a death sentence. The injured inmate explained that the victim became worried. He believed people were watching him, following him, listening to his conversations. At first, the survivor thought his friend was imagining things. Prison can affect the mind. Constant stress changes people. Fear becomes normal. Suspicion becomes survival. But then, strange things began to happen. The victim started receiving warnings, anonymous notes, messages passed through other inmates, comments whispered during recreation. None of them were direct threats, not exactly, but they carried the same meaning. Be careful, watch your back, stay quiet. The warnings continued for weeks. The victim became increasingly isolated. He stopped spending time with certain people. He changed his daily routine. He avoided areas where gang members gathered. Still, the pressure never disappeared. Then came the conversation that changed everything. The survivor remembered it clearly. It happened late one evening. The two men were sitting in the common area. Most inmates were watching television. Others played cards. The victim leaned closer and lowered his voice. "I think they made a mistake." The survivor frowned. "What do you mean?" The victim glanced around the room. Then he spoke. "They think I know something." The survivor asked what information he was talking about. The victim closed his eyes. "I don't know." But he looked unconvinced, as if he knew more than he wanted to admit. That conversation haunted the survivor after the murder. Now, lying in a prison hospital bed, he finally understood why. Investigators listened carefully. Every detail mattered. Every memory could help explain what happened. The survivor then revealed something else, something far more disturbing. Several days before the yard attack, he had overheard a conversation. Two gang members were speaking quietly near the recreation area. Most people would have ignored it, but certain words caught his attention. One phrase stood out: the list. At the time, he didn't understand its significance. Now, he believed it was important. Investigators immediately focused on that detail. What list? They asked. The survivor shook his head.
I don't know. But he remembered another sentence. A sentence he would never forget. One is first, others come later. The room fell silent. Investigators exchanged nervous looks. The implication was chilling. What if the victim had not been the only target? What if there were more names, more planned attacks, more violence waiting to happen? The possibility could not be ignored. Investigators expanded their search immediately. Housing units were searched, cells were inspected, gang intelligence files were reviewed. Officers worked long hours examining every possible lead. Then they found something. Inside a routine cell search, staff discovered a folded piece of paper hidden beneath a mattress. At first glance, it looked unimportant, just another scrap of paper. But when investigators opened it, they froze. Several names were written on the page. Most had small marks beside them. One name was crossed out. The crossed-out name belonged to the inmate who had been killed on the yard. Suddenly, the investigation became much larger. This was no longer about a single attack. This suggested planning, organization, coordination, the existence of additional targets. Federal authorities became deeply concerned. If the list was real, more violence could follow. Prison administrators immediately moved several inmates into protective custody. Others were transferred. Additional gang leaders were placed under closer observation. The prison remained locked down. Meanwhile, rumors continued spreading through the inmate population. Fear increased. Nobody knew who might be next. Nobody knew how many names were on the list, and nobody knew who created it. The atmosphere inside the prison changed dramatically. Even experienced inmates seemed nervous. Men who usually appeared confident now avoided attention. Conversations became shorter. Trust became even rarer. Because if investigators were correct, someone inside the prison was conducting a campaign of intimidation, possibly even a purge, and anyone connected to the wrong person could become a target. Days later, forensic teams completed their examination of the coded messages recovered from the victim's property. What they discovered stunned investigators. The messages appeared connected to communications moving between multiple federal prisons. The network was larger than anyone initially believed, much larger. And somewhere within that network was the person responsible for ordering the execution. A person who never touched a weapon, a person who may never have been present during the attack, yet someone whose influence reached deep inside prison walls. As investigators prepared to follow this new lead, another troubling report arrived. A correctional officer had intercepted a coded message moving through the prison. Most of the message remained difficult to understand, but one sentence was perfectly clear. Problems must be removed. The words sent chills through the investigative team because they suggested the violence was not over, not even close. And as investigators dug deeper into the hidden world of prison gangs, they were about to uncover a system of power far more dangerous than they ever imagined. A system where orders traveled silently through walls, across states, and between prisons. A system controlled by men who rarely appeared in public, men known throughout the prison world by a single title: shot callers. The message was only 3 words long: problems must be disappear. Yet those 3 words changed the entire investigation.
Federal investigators had seen coded gang communications before. They knew prison gangs rarely spoke openly about violence. Orders were hidden behind simple phrases. A few words could mean everything. And this message appeared to be exactly that: a warning, a command, or perhaps both. Inside the prison's intelligence office, investigators pinned photographs across a large board. Pictures of inmates, known gang members, associates, suspected leaders. The board grew larger every day. Lines connected names, connections emerged, patterns formed, and slowly, investigators found themselves moving toward a group of inmates who rarely attracted attention. These men were not the strongest. They were usually not the ones carrying weapons. They were not the inmates seen fighting in recreation yards. Yet, many officers believed they were among the most dangerous people in the prison. They were known as shot callers. A shot caller is a gang leader, someone who gives orders, someone whose decisions can affect hundreds of inmates, someone who rarely needs to commit violence personally because others are willing to do it for him. Inside federal prisons, a shot caller's influence can stretch across housing units, facilities, and even state lines. Many inmates fear them more than prison staff. Because prison staff can transfer an inmate, a shot caller can make sure an inmate is never safe again. Investigators believe the execution on the yard have been approved by someone like this. The attackers themselves were considered no major leaders. They were soldiers, followers, men trusted to carry out orders. The real decision-maker remained hidden. Finding him became the investigation's top priority. As investigators examined prison records, one name continued appearing, again and again and again. The inmate had spent years moving through federal prisons. His disciplinary history was extensive. His gang connections were well known. Yet, despite repeated investigations, officials had never managed to directly link him to major acts of violence. That alone made him suspicious. Experienced investigators knew something important. The most dangerous leaders often leave the fewest fingerprints. They stay behind the scenes. They avoid attention. They let others take the risks. The inmate was currently housed in a highly secure section of the prison. Most days he appeared calm, quiet, respectful. Nothing about his behavior suggested he controlled anything. Yet intelligence reports painted a different picture. Numerous confidential sources identified him as one of the most influential gang figures in the facility. If disputes occurred, inmates sought his approval. If debts needed collecting, his opinion mattered. If violence was required, people listened. But proving those claims was extremely difficult. The prison operated under constant surveillance. Phones were monitored, mail was inspected, visits were recorded. Yet somehow, instructions continued moving throughout the prison. It fascinated investigators. How could gang leaders maintain control under such conditions? The answer was surprisingly simple: communication. Not through technology, through people. A message could travel through dozens of inmates before reaching its destination. One inmate tells another. That inmate tells someone else. The chain continues. Eventually, the information reaches the intended target. No written record, no recorded phone call, no direct evidence, just whispers. And whispers are difficult to prosecute. The investigation soon uncovered another troubling reality. Prison gangs did not operate only inside one institution. Many functioned as national organizations. Members existed in prisons across America. Leaders communicated through coded letters. Family members, released associates, visitors, sometimes even through legal paperwork. The methods varied. The goal remained the same: maintain control, protect the organization, punish disloyalty. Investigators reviewing the victim's background discovered something interesting. Several months before his death, he reportedly had become involved in a disagreement with gang members connected to another federal prison. At first glance, the dispute appeared minor, nothing unusual. Prisons are full of arguments. Most never become violent. This one was different. The disagreement never truly ended. Instead, it followed him through messages, rumors, warnings. The conflict slowly grew until eventually it reached the prison where he was killed. The deeper investigators looked, the more convinced they became that the execution was not spontaneous. It likely had been approved weeks earlier, perhaps months. The attack itself lasted only moments. The planning behind it may have taken much longer. Meanwhile, life inside the prison remained tense. The lockdown continued. Inmates grew frustrated. Some complained openly. Others remained silent. Many simply waited. Waiting is a major part of prison life. Waiting for meals, waiting for recreation, waiting for release. Now they were waiting to see what happened next. Officers felt the pressure too. Every shift carried additional risk. Staff knew gangs were watching, listening, adapting. A single mistake could have serious consequences. One veteran correctional officer later
described the atmosphere. It felt like the prison was holding its breath. Nobody knew when the next incident might occur. Investigators continued interviewing inmates. Most remained unwilling to cooperate. Fear controlled nearly every conversation. One inmate summed it up perfectly. "If I talk to you today, somebody else talks to me tomorrow." The meaning was obvious. Retaliation. In prison culture, cooperation with investigators can carry enormous risks. Even inmates who wanted violence stopped often refused to provide information. Survival came first. Days passed. Then investigators received an unexpected break. A confidential source approached prison staff. The inmate requested protection before speaking. That request alone suggested the information was serious. The meeting occurred in a secure location. Only a few people attended. The source appeared nervous. He repeatedly checked the door, checked the windows, checked the hallway. Finally, he spoke. According to the source, gang leaders had become increasingly concerned about information leaks. Several internal discussions had taken place, meetings, arguments, accusations. Someone was suspected of sharing sensitive information. Nobody knew exactly who, but suspicion alone created danger. The source claimed the victim had become trapped in that environment, not necessarily because he was guilty, but because someone believed he was. In prison gangs, perception can become reality. If enough people believe an accusation, evidence may not matter. The consequences can arrive quickly. Investigators listened carefully. The source continued. He claimed the execution was intended as a warning, not only to one person, to everyone. The message was simple: stay loyal, stay silent, or face the consequences. The statement matched much of what investigators already suspected, but one detail stood out. The source mentioned another name, a different inmate, someone currently housed in another federal prison hundreds of miles away. According to the source, this individual held significant authority within the gang. If true, it meant decisions affecting one prison could originate somewhere entirely different. The investigation suddenly expanded beyond a single institution. Federal agencies began sharing intelligence. Analysts compared reports. Communication records were reviewed. Connections emerged. And with every new discovery, the picture became clearer. The violence inside one prison yard was connected to something much larger, a network operating across the federal prison system, a network built on fear, loyalty, and power. Yet investigators still lacked the one thing they needed most: proof. Suspicion was not enough. Intelligence reports were not enough. They needed evidence. Real evidence, something that could withstand scrutiny, something that could expose the people truly responsible. Then another development occurred. A routine search uncovered several coded documents hidden inside a housing unit. At first, the papers appeared meaningless.
random numbers, strange symbols, short phrases, but intelligence specialists recognized familiar patterns. The documents resembled gang communication systems used in other federal prisons. Investigators immediately began analyzing them. Hours turned into days. Slowly, portions of the code were translated, and what they revealed was alarming. References to discipline, references to loyalty, references to enforcement. The language strongly suggested organized gang activity, perhaps even discussions surrounding violence. The investigation gained momentum, but so did the danger, because every step investigators took increased the risk that gang members would realize how much authorities were learning. And if that happened, someone might try to stop the flow of information. Inside the prison, tension continued rising. Officers reported unusual inmate behavior. Certain gang members appeared nervous. Others became unusually quiet. Movements changed. Routines changed. It was as though people sensed something approaching. Something significant. Investigators felt it too. The case was building toward a critical moment. They were getting closer to understanding who ordered the execution, closer to exposing the network behind it, closer to identifying the leaders operating in the shadows. But before they could reach those answers, another event would shake the prison, an event involving contraband, hidden weapons, and a discovery that revealed just how prepared the gangs really were. Because while investigators focused on solving a murder, prison staff were about to uncover evidence suggesting something even larger was developing behind the walls, something that threatened the safety of everyone inside, including the officers themselves. The discovery happened just after sunrise. Correctional officers were conducting what appeared to be a routine search. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. Searches happened every day inside federal prisons. Cells were inspected, property was examined, mattresses were lifted, lockers were opened. Most searches ended with little more than confiscated food or minor rule violations. This one was different, very different. An officer entered a small cell located near the end of a housing unit. The inmate assigned to the cell had already been removed for questioning. The room looked clean. Almost too clean. Years of experience taught officers to trust their instincts. Something felt wrong. The officer carefully examined the metal bed frame. Then he noticed a loose section near the bottom. He called another officer over. Together they pulled the frame apart. What they found immediately changed the situation. Hidden inside was a homemade weapon, then another. The weapons were carefully wrapped and concealed. Each one had been sharpened into a deadly point. Some measured several inches long. Others were larger, much larger. The officers stared in disbelief. This was not a single weapon hidden for personal protection. This looked like preparation for something serious. This discovery triggered an immediate response. Additional staff were called. The housing unit was secured. Investigators arrived within minutes. Every cell in the unit was ordered searched. What followed shocked even veteran officers. Weapons appeared everywhere. Inside walls, under sinks, behind vents, inside electrical fixtures, hidden beneath concrete. Some were crude. Others were surprisingly sophisticated. Many appeared professionally made, despite being created inside prison. By the end of the day, staff had recovered dozens of weapons. The number alone was alarming. The quality was even worse. These were not tools created overnight. Many required time, planning, resources, and cooperation. Someone had been organizing this activity. The question was why. Investigators reviewed the evidence carefully. The timing felt significant. The prison was already dealing with a high-profile murder investigation. Gang leaders were under pressure. Information was leaking. Tensions were rising. Now, large numbers of weapons were being discovered. The pieces appeared connected. Somewhere, somehow. Prison administrators ordered additional emergency measures. Movement throughout the institution became even more restricted. More searches followed. More housing units were inspected. More contraband was discovered. The prison seemed to be hiding secrets in every corner. Meanwhile, officers began discussing a troubling possibility. What if the investigation were not the only targets? What if gangs expected confrontation with prison staff? The idea was unsettling. Most inmates simply wanted to complete their sentences. Many avoided trouble whenever possible. But organized prison gangs often operated differently. Their goals extended beyond individual survival. They focused on power, control, influence, and maintaining their authority. If that authority felt threatened, violence could follow. Several days after the weapon discovery, investigators received new intelligence. According to confidential sources, gang leaders were becoming increasingly frustrated. The lockdowns, the searches, the interviews, all of it was disrupting prison operations. Not official prison operations, gang operations. Contraband movement had slowed. Communication had become more difficult. Income sources were being affected. Pressure was building. And pressure inside prison can be dangerous. The intelligence reports described growing tension among gang members. Arguments were occurring. Meetings were becoming more frequent. Leaders were demanding answers. Some wanted to know who had been talking. Others wanted to know how investigators kept uncovering information. The atmosphere was becoming unstable. One officer later described it as sitting beside a barrel of gasoline while someone searched for matches. Nobody knew exactly when things might explode, but everyone knew the possibility existed. As investigators continued analyzing the recovered weapons, another pattern emerged. Many of the weapons had been hidden near inmates associated with specific gang groups. That observation strengthened existing theories. The gangs were not simply reacting to events. They appeared to be preparing for them, preparing for conflict, preparing for retaliation, preparing for uncertainty. The realization worried prison administrators. Federal prisons are designed around control. Control keeps inmates safe. Control protects staff. Control prevents chaos. When organized groups begin preparing for violence, that control can quickly disappear. Investigators expanded their focus. They examined gang structures more closely, how decisions were made, how orders traveled, how discipline was enforced. What they discovered painted a disturbing picture. Inside many prison gangs, loyalty is everything. Members are expected to follow rules, expected to obey leaders, expected to place the organization above themselves. Failure to do so can carry severe consequences. Sometimes
Those consequences involve isolation. Sometimes they involve assault. And in the most serious cases, they can involve death. The murdered inmate appeared to have crossed into that dangerous territory. Whether he actually violated gang rules remained unclear, but someone believed he had. And in that world, belief often matters more than proof. As investigators examined communication records, they noticed another troubling trend. Several inmates connected to the murder case had recently received unusual amounts of mail. Most letters appeared harmless: family updates, personal conversations, everyday matters. Yet intelligence specialists suspected coded language. Certain phrases repeated frequently. Specific words appeared again and again. On their own, the letters seemed innocent. Viewed together, they suggested something else: a communication system hidden in plain sight. The investigation continued growing. Federal agencies became increasingly involved. Information moved between institutions. Analysts reviewed gang intelligence collected over many years. Patterns stretching across multiple states began to emerge. The prison murder was no longer viewed as an isolated incident. Instead, it appeared connected to broader organizational activity, a network extending far beyond one prison yard, far beyond one facility, far beyond one state. Then another major development occurred. An inmate requested emergency protective custody. Such requests were not uncommon. Prison can be dangerous. Fear often motivates people to seek protection. This case was different. The inmate claimed he had received warnings, direct warnings, not rumors, not vague threats, actual warnings. According to a statement, gang members believed investigators were getting too close,
Certain people were becoming nervous, and nervous people make dangerous decisions. The inmate refused to provide many details. Fear still controlled him, but one statement caught investigators' attention. "They're trying to clean up loose ends." The phrase immediately raised concern. Loose ends, potential witnesses, people with information, people connected to the murder. The possibility was alarming. If gang members were attempting to silence additional individuals, more attacks could follow. Prison officials reacted quickly. Potential targets were identified. Housing assignments were reviewed. Protective measures were expanded. Officers increased monitoring efforts. Yet, despite these actions, uncertainty remained. Nobody knew how many people might be at risk. Nobody knew who might act next. And nobody knew how desperate certain gang leaders had become. As the days passed, investigators worked tirelessly. The evidence continued building. The weapon discoveries, the coded messages, the intelligence reports, the witness statements. Each piece added another layer to the story. Slowly, the hidden structure behind the violence became visible. But one final piece remained missing: the chain of command. Who issued the original order? Who approved the execution? Who sat at the top of the network? Until investigators answered those questions, the case remained incomplete. Then a breakthrough arrived from outside the prison. A federal intelligence analyst reviewing communications from another institution discovered a connection linking multiple prisons, multiple gang leaders, and possibly the murder itself. The information was explosive. If verified, it could expose the individuals truly responsible for the violence. But it also carried enormous risk, because once those individuals realized investigators were closing in, they might take drastic action. And inside America's toughest federal prisons, drastic action often comes with deadly consequences. The hunt for the people behind the execution was entering its most dangerous phase, and neither investigators nor prison staff knew how far the gangs were willing to go to protect their power. The breakthrough came from hundreds of miles away. For weeks, investigators had focused on the prison where the murder happened. They searched cells, reviewed surveillance footage, interviewed inmates, tracked gang activity. Yet one question remained unanswered: who gave the order? The attackers were known, the victim was known, the motive was becoming clearer, but the person who approved the killing remained hidden. Then a federal intelligence analyst noticed something unusual. The analyst worked in an office far from the prison. Every day he reviewed reports from facilities across the country. Most reports involved routine incidents: fights, contraband, gang activity, nothing unusual. But while reviewing communication records connected to several federal prisons, he noticed a pattern. The same names kept appearing, the same phrases, the same coded language, again and again. At first, it seemed like a coincidence. Then the pattern became impossible to ignore. Information connected to the murder investigation appeared linked to inmates housed in completely different prisons. That discovery changed everything. Investigators suddenly realized they might be dealing with something much larger than a single prison conflict. They might be looking at a coordinated network, a network operating across multiple federal institutions, a network capable of sharing information, enforcing discipline, and issuing orders regardless of location. The evidence continued growing. One prison reported similar coded messages. Another reported increased gang meetings. A third institution had recently experienced a suspicious assault involving inmates connected to the same gang structure. Separately, the incidents seemed unrelated. Together, they painted a disturbing picture. Federal investigators organized a meeting. Representatives from several facilities joined the discussion. Intelligence officers shared information. Analysts compared records. Photographs were reviewed. Communication logs were examined. The room grew quieter as the evidence accumulated. The connections were becoming undeniable. The murder was not an isolated incident. It was part of a larger operation. and somewhere within that operation were individuals exercising authority across multiple prisons. One investigator described the situation perfectly. It was like looking at pieces of a puzzle for weeks, then suddenly seeing the full picture. The picture was alarming. Gang prisoners were adapting. They were becoming more organized, more sophisticated, more connected. Technology played a role, but human communication remained their greatest strength. Messages moved through visitors, family members, associates on the outside, former inmates, and sometimes through methods investigators never fully understood. The result was a network that stretched far beyond prison fences, a network difficult to disrupt and even harder to destroy. As investigators dug deeper, they identified several inmates believed to occupy leadership positions. These men were not housed together. In fact, many were located in different states.
Yet intelligence suggested they maintained influence over gang activities across the federal system. Their power did not come from physical strength. It came from reputation, connections, authority, and fear. Many gang members viewed their orders as absolute. Questioning leadership carried risks. Ignoring instructions carried greater risks. The system depended on obedience. Without obedience, the organization weakened. With obedience, it thrived. Investigators suspected the murdered inmate had become connected to a situation that threatened that structure. Whether intentionally or accidentally, he had attracted attention from people who valued loyalty above everything else. And once that happened, his future became uncertain. Meanwhile, inside the prison, tensions continued rising. Officers noticed increasing nervousness among gang members. Certain inmates became withdrawn. Others appeared unusually alert. Rumors spread constantly. Everyone seemed to know something, yet nobody knew the full story. That uncertainty created fear. Fear affected everyone: inmates, officers, investigators. No one could predict what might happen next. Then another development occurred. A search of legal paperwork belonging to an inmate uncovered something unexpected. Tucked between ordinary documents was a handwritten page. The writing appeared harmless, just notes, random phrases, nothing immediately suspicious. But intelligence specialists recognized familiar patterns. The wording resembled previously identified gang codes. The document was sent for analysis. Several days later, results arrived. Parts of the message appeared connected to organizational instructions, references to discipline, references to communication, references to maintaining order. The exact meaning remained difficult to determine, but investigators believed they were looking at evidence of gang management, evidence that prison operations were being directed through hidden channels. The discovery strengthened existing theories. The gangs were not simply reacting to prison life. They were actively managing it, shaping it, controlling aspects of it. And violence served as one of their most effective tools. Every attack carried a message. Every punishment reinforced authority. Every act of intimidation reminded others who held power. That realization helped investigators understand the murder more clearly. The victim may not have been selected solely because of what he did. He may have been selected because of what his death represented. A demonstration, a warning, a lesson for others. The idea was unsettling because it meant violence could be strategic, calculated, designed to influence behavior throughout the prison population, not just harm one individual. As investigators continued following leads, they received assistance from another federal institution. Officials there had recently intercepted correspondence connected to gang members under investigation. Most of the communication appeared routine, but one section attracted attention. It referenced keeping the structure strong. The phrase seemed simple, yet intelligence officers believed it reflected something important: organizational survival, maintaining authority, preventing challenges, protecting leadership, all themes appearing repeatedly throughout the investigation. The evidence continued pointing toward the same conclusion. The murder was likely approved by individuals focused on preserving control,
not by people acting impulsively, not by people reacting emotionally, but by people making deliberate decisions, people operating within a system. The challenge remained proving it. Federal investigations require evidence, reliable evidence, not assumptions, not rumors, not theories. Investigators needed facts. Every lead was examined carefully. Every statement was verified. Every piece of intelligence was tested. Progress was slow, but progress was happening. Then another confidential source came forward. The inmate requested immediate protection. His fear was obvious. Even before speaking, his hands shook, his voice cracked. He repeatedly asked whether his identity would remain confidential. Investigators assured him it would. Finally, he began talking. The source described growing anxiety among gang leadership. According to him, certain leaders believed authorities were getting dangerously close. Meetings had become more frequent. Communication had increased. People were discussing contingency plans. The statement caught investigators' attention. Contingency plans suggested preparation. Preparation suggested concern. And concern suggested pressure. The investigation was having an impact. The source then shared another detail that immediately raised alarms. According to his information, some gang members believed additional violence might become necessary, not because they wanted it, because they believed it would protect the organization. Investigators understood the implication immediately. If leadership felt threatened, witnesses and potential informants could face increased risk. The situation became more urgent. Protective measures expanded. Monitoring increased. Additional intelligence resources were assigned. The goal was simple: prevent further violence. Yet everyone involved understood the difficulty. Federal prisons are complex environments. Control exists, but it is never absolute. Even the best security systems have limits. Even the most experienced investigators cannot predict every action. That reality weighed heavily on the people working the case. As night fell over the prison, investigators reviewed everything they had learned. The murder, the coded messages, the hidden weapons, the national gang connections, the leadership structure, the witness statements. The evidence pointed in one direction, toward a powerful network determined to preserve its influence. A network that extended beyond prison walls. A network capable of reaching into multiple institutions, and a network that might still be planning its next move. Then, just before midnight, an urgent report arrived. A correctional officer had discovered evidence suggesting a planned disturbance inside the prison. The details were incomplete, but one thing was clear: the danger was not over. In fact, it might be escalating. And what investigators uncovered next would reveal just how fragile order could become inside America's toughest federal prisons. The report arrived shortly before midnight. A correctional officer working inside one of the prison's housing units noticed unusual activity. At first, it seemed minor. A few inmates moving between cells more frequently than normal. Several quiet conversations ending the moment staff approached. Groups gathering briefly, then separating. None of these actions violated prison rules by themselves, but together they created concern. Experienced officers understand something important. Major prison disturbances rarely happen without warning. There are signs, small signs, subtle changes, unusual behavior, increased tension. The challenge is recognizing those signs before violence begins. That night, officers believed they were seeing them. The information was immediately passed to supervisors. Within minutes, intelligence staff began reviewing recent reports. As they compared notes, a troubling picture emerged. Several confidential sources had reported similar concerns. Different housing units, different inmates, different details, yet all pointed to the same possibility. Something was being planned. Nobody knew exactly what, but the prison leadership could not ignore the warnings. Additional security measures were implemented immediately. Extra officers were assigned to critical areas. Movement restrictions increased.
Searches intensified. Emergency response teams were placed on standby. The atmosphere inside the prison changed overnight. Everyone felt it. Inmates, staff, investigators. The tension was becoming impossible to ignore. By sunrise, rumors were spreading throughout the institution. Some inmates believed gang leaders were preparing a coordinated protest. Others feared large-scale violence. Many simply stayed quiet. In prison, uncertainty often creates more fear than confirmed danger. People imagine worst-case scenarios, and sometimes those scenarios become reality. As investigators examined intelligence reports, they noticed another disturbing trend. Several gang-affiliated inmates had recently refused routine assignments. Others appeared unusually focused on.
Yet intelligence suggested they maintained influence over gang activities across the federal system. Their power did not come from physical strength. It came from reputation, connections, authority, and fear. Many gang members viewed their orders as absolute. Questioning leadership carried risks. Ignoring instructions carried greater risks. The system depended on obedience. Without obedience, the organization weakened. With obedience, it thrived. Investigators suspected the murdered inmate had become connected to a situation that threatened that structure. Whether intentionally or accidentally, he had attracted attention from people who valued loyalty above everything else. And once that happened, his future became uncertain. Meanwhile, inside the prison, tensions continued rising. Officers noticed increasing nervousness among gang members. Certain inmates became withdrawn. Others appeared unusually alert. Rumors spread constantly. Everyone seemed to know something, yet nobody knew the full story. That uncertainty created fear. Fear affected everyone: inmates, officers, investigators. No one could predict what might happen next. Then,
another development occurred. A routine search uncovered several coded documents hidden inside a housing unit. At first, the papers appeared meaningless. Random numbers, strange symbols, short phrases. But intelligence specialists recognized familiar patterns. The documents resembled gang communication systems used in other federal prisons. Investigators immediately began analyzing them. Hours turned into days. Slowly, portions of the code were translated, and what they revealed was alarming. References to discipline, references to loyalty, references to enforcement. The language strongly suggested organized gang activity, perhaps even discussions surrounding violence. The investigation gained momentum, but so did the danger, because every step investigators took increased the risk that gang members would realize how much authorities were learning, and if that happened, someone might try to stop the flow of information. Inside the prison, tension continued rising. Officers reported unusual inmate behavior. Certain gang members appeared nervous. Others became unusually quiet. Movements changed, routines changed. It was as though people sensed something approaching, something significant. Investigators felt it too. The case was building toward a critical moment. They were getting closer, closer to understanding who ordered the execution, closer to exposing the network behind it, closer to identifying the leaders operating in the shadows. But before they could reach those answers, another event would shake the prison. An event involving contraband, hidden weapons, and a discovery that revealed just how prepared the gangs truly were. Because while investigators focused on solving a murder, prison staff were about to uncover evidence suggesting something even larger was developing behind the walls, something that threatened the safety of everyone inside, including the officers themselves. The discovery happened just after sunrise. Correctional officers were conducting what appeared to be a routine search. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. Searches happened every day inside federal prisons. Cells were inspected, property was examined, mattresses were lifted, lockers were opened. Most searches ended with little more than confiscated food or minor rule violations. This one was different, very different. an officer entered a small cell located near the end of a housing unit. The inmate assigned to the cell had already been removed for questioning. The room looked clean, almost too clean. Years of experience taught officers to trust their instincts. Something felt wrong. The officer carefully examined the metal bed frame. Then he noticed a loose section near the bottom. He called another officer over. Together, they pulled the frame apart. What they found immediately changed the situation. Hidden inside was a homemade weapon, then another, then another. The weapons were carefully wrapped and concealed. Each one had been sharpened into a deadly point. Some measured several inches long, others were larger, much larger. The officers stared in disbelief. This was not a single weapon hidden for personal protection. This looked like preparation for something serious. The discovery triggered an immediate response. Additional staff were called. The housing unit was secured. Investigators arrived within minutes. Every cell in the unit was ordered searched. What followed shocked even veteran officers. Weapons appeared everywhere, inside walls, under sinks, behind vents, inside electrical fixtures, hidden beneath concrete. Some were crude, others were surprisingly sophisticated. Many appeared professionally made despite being created inside prison. By the end of the day, staff had recovered dozens of weapons. The number alone was alarming. The quality was even worse. These were not tools created overnight. Many required time, planning, resources, and cooperation. Someone had been organizing this activity. The question was, why? Investigators reviewed the evidence carefully. The timing felt significant. The prison was already dealing with a high-profile murder investigation. Gang leaders were under pressure. Information was leaking. Tensions were rising. Now, large numbers of weapons were being discovered. The pieces appeared connected, somewhere, somehow. Prison administrators ordered additional emergency measures. Movement throughout the institution became even more restricted. More searches followed. More housing units were inspected. More contraband was discovered. The prison seemed to be hiding secrets in every corner. Meanwhile, officers began discussing a troubling possibility. What if the murder investigators were not the only targets? What if gangs expected confrontation with prison staff? The idea was unsettling. Most inmates simply wanted to complete their sentences. Many avoided trouble whenever possible, but organized prison gangs often operated differently. Their goals extended beyond individual survival. They focused on power, control, influence, and maintaining their authority. If that authority felt threatened, violence could follow. Several days after the weapon discovery, investigators received new intelligence. According to confidential sources, gang leaders were becoming increasingly frustrated. The lockdowns, the searches, the interviews, all of it was disrupting prison operations. Not official prison operations, gang operations. Contraband movement had slowed, communication had become more difficult, income sources were being affected, pressure was building, and pressure inside prison can be dangerous. The intelligence reports described growing tension among gang members. Arguments were occurring, meetings were becoming more frequent, leaders were demanding answers. Some wanted to know who had been talking, others wanted to know how investigators kept uncovering information. The atmosphere was becoming unstable. One officer later described it as sitting beside a barrel of gasoline while someone searched for matches. Nobody knew exactly when things might explode, but everyone knew the possibility existed. As investigators continued analyzing the weapons recovered, another pattern emerged. Many of the weapons had been hidden near inmates associated with specific gang groups. That observation strengthened existing theories. The gangs were not simply reacting to events, they appeared to be preparing for them, preparing for conflict, preparing for retaliation, preparing for uncertainty. The realization worried prison officials. Federal prisons are designed around control. Control keeps inmates safe. Control protects staff. Control prevents chaos. When organized groups begin preparing for violence, that control can quickly disappear. Investigators expanded their focus. They examined gang structures more closely, how decisions were made, how orders traveled, how discipline was enforced. What they discovered painted a disturbing picture. Inside many prison gangs, loyalty is everything. Members are expected to follow rules, expected to obey leaders, expected to place the organization above themselves. Failure to do so can carry severe consequences. Sometimes those consequences involve isolation, sometimes they involve assault, and in the most serious cases, they can involve death. The murdered inmate appeared to have crossed into that dangerous territory. Whether he actually violated gang rules remained unclear, but someone believed he had, and in that world, belief often matters more than proof. As investigators examined communication records, they noticed another troubling trend. Several inmates connected to the murder case had recently received unusual amounts of mail. Most letters appeared harmless, family updates, personal conversations, everyday matters. Yet intelligence specialists suspected coded language. Certain phrases repeated frequently, certain words appeared again and again. On their own, the letters seemed innocent. Viewed together, they suggested something else, a communication system hidden in plain sight. The investigation continued growing. Federal agencies became increasingly involved. Information moved between institutions. Analysts reviewed gang intelligence collected over many years. Patterns stretching across multiple states began to emerge. The prison murder was no longer viewed as an isolated incident. Instead, it appeared connected to broader organizational activity, a network extending far beyond one prison yard, far beyond one facility, far beyond one state. Then another major development occurred. An inmate requested emergency protective custody. Such requests were not uncommon. Prison can be dangerous. Fear often motivates people to seek protection. This case was different. The inmate claimed he had received warnings, direct warnings, not rumors, not vague threats, actual warnings. According to his statement, gang members believed investigators were getting too close. Certain people were becoming nervous, and nervous people make dangerous decisions. The inmate refused to provide many details. Fear still controlled him, but one statement caught investigators' attention. "They're trying to clean up loose ends." The phrase immediately raised concern. Loose ends, potential witnesses, people with information, people connected to the murder. The possibility was alarming. If gang members were attempting to silence additional individuals,
more attacks could follow. Prison officials reacted quickly. Potential targets were identified. Housing assignments were reviewed. Protective measures were expanded. Officers increased monitoring efforts. Yet despite these actions, uncertainty remained. Nobody knew how many people might be at risk. Nobody knew who might act next. And nobody knew how desperate certain gang leaders had become. As the days passed, investigators worked tirelessly. The evidence continued building. The weapon discoveries, the coded messages, the intelligence reports, the witness statements. Each piece added another layer to the story. Slowly, the hidden structure behind the violence became visible. But one final piece remained missing: the chain of command. Who had issued the original order? Who approved the execution? Who sat at the top of the network? Until investigators answered those questions, the case remained incomplete. Then a breakthrough arrived from outside the prison. A federal intelligence analyst reviewing communications from another institution discovered a connection linking multiple prisons, multiple gang leaders, and possibly the murder itself. The information was explosive. If verified, it could expose the individuals truly responsible for the violence, but it also carried enormous risk, because once those individuals realized investigators were closing in, they might take drastic action. And inside America's toughest federal prisons, drastic action often comes with deadly consequences. The hunt for the people behind the execution was entering its most dangerous phase, and neither investigators nor prison staff knew how far the gangs were willing to go to protect their power. The breakthrough came from hundreds of miles away. For weeks, investigators had focused on the prison where the murder happened. They searched cells, reviewed surveillance footage, interviewed inmates, tracked gang activity. Yet one question remained unanswered. Who gave the order? The attackers were known, the victim was known, the motive was becoming clearer, but the person who approved the killing remained hidden. Then, a federal intelligence analyst noticed something unusual. The analyst worked in an office far from the prison. Every day, he reviewed reports from facilities across the country. Most reports involved routine incidents, fights, contraband, gang activity, nothing unusual. But while reviewing communication records connected to several federal prisons, he noticed a pattern. The same names kept appearing, the same phrases, the same coded language, again and again. At first, it seemed like coincidence. Then the pattern became impossible to ignore. Information connected to the murder investigation appeared linked to inmates housed in completely different prisons. That discovery changed everything. Investigators suddenly realized they might be dealing with something much larger than a single prison conflict. They might be looking at a coordinated network, a network operating across multiple federal institutions, a network capable of sharing information, enforcing discipline, and issuing orders regardless of location. The evidence continued growing. One prison reported similar coded messages. Another reported increased gang meetings. A third institution had recently experienced a suspicious assault involving inmates connected to the same gang structure. Separately, the incidents seemed unrelated. Together, they painted a disturbing picture. Federal investigators organized a meeting. Representatives from several facilities joined the discussion. Intelligence officers shared information. Analysts compared records. Photographs were reviewed. Communication logs were examined. The room grew quieter as the evidence accumulated. The connections were becoming undeniable. The murder was not an isolated event. It was part of a larger operation. And somewhere within that operation were individuals exercising authority across multiple prisons. One investigator described the situation perfectly. It was like looking at pieces of a puzzle for weeks, then suddenly seeing the full picture. The picture was alarming. Gang prisoners were adapting. They were becoming more organized, more sophisticated, more connected. Technology played a role, but human communication remained their greatest strength. Messages moved through visitors, family members, associates on the outside, former inmates, and sometimes through methods investigators never fully understood. The result was a network that stretched far beyond prison fences, a network difficult to disrupt and even harder to destroy. As investigators dug deeper, they identified several inmates believed to occupy leadership positions. These men were not housed together. In fact, many were located in different states. Yet intelligence suggested they maintained influence over gang activities across the federal system. Their power did not come from physical strength. It came from reputation, connections, authority, and fear. Many gang members viewed their orders as absolute. Questioning leadership carried risks. Ignoring instructions carried greater risks. The system depended on obedience. Without obedience, the organization weakened. With obedience, it thrived. Investigators suspected the murdered inmate had become connected to a situation that threatened that structure. Whether intentionally or accidentally,
he had attracted attention from people who valued loyalty above everything else, and once that happened, his future became uncertain. Meanwhile, inside the prison, tensions continued rising. Officers noticed increasing nervousness among gang members. Certain inmates became withdrawn, others appeared unusually alert. Rumors spread constantly. Everyone seemed to know something, yet nobody knew the full story. That uncertainty created fear. Fear affected everyone: inmates, officers, investigators. No one could predict what might happen next. Then another development occurred. A search of legal paperwork belonging to an inmate uncovered something unexpected. Tucked between ordinary documents was a handwritten page. The writing appeared harmless, just notes, random phrases, nothing immediately suspicious, but intelligence specialists recognized familiar patterns. The wording resembled previously identified gang codes. The document was sent for analysis. Several days later, results arrived. Parts of the message appeared connected to organizational instructions, references to discipline, references to communication, references to maintaining order. The exact meaning remained difficult to determine, but investigators believed they were looking at evidence of gang management, evidence that prison operations were being directed through hidden channels. The discovery strengthened existing theories. The gangs were not simply reacting to prison life. They were actively managing it, shaping it, controlling aspects of it, and violence served as one of their most effective tools. Every attack carried a message. Every punishment reinforced authority. Every act of intimidation reminded others who held power. That realization helped investigators understand the murder more clearly. The victim may not have been selected solely because of what he did. He may have been selected because of what his death represented: a demonstration, a warning, a lesson for others. The idea was unsettling because it meant violence could be strategic, calculated, designed to influence behavior throughout the prison population, not just harm one individual. As investigators continued following leads, they received assistance from another federal institution. Officials there had recently intercepted correspondence connected to gang members under investigation. Most of the communication appeared routine, but one section attracted attention. It referenced keeping the structure strong. The phrase seemed simple, yet intelligence officers believed it reflected something important: organizational survival, maintaining authority, preventing challenges, protecting leadership, all themes appearing repeatedly throughout the investigation. The evidence continued pointing towards the same conclusion. The murder was likely approved by individuals focused on preserving control, not by people acting impulsively, not by people reacting emotionally, but by people making deliberate decisions, people operating within a system. The challenge remained proving it. Federal investigations require evidence, reliable evidence, not assumptions, not rumors, not theories. Investigators needed facts. Every lead was examined carefully. Every statement was verified. Every piece of intelligence was tested. Progress was
slow, but progress was happening. Then another confidential source came forward. The inmate requested immediate protection. His fear was obvious. Even before speaking, his hand shook, his voice cracked. He repeatedly asked whether his identity would remain confidential. Investigators assured him it would. Finally, he began talking. The source described growing anxiety among gang leadership. According to him, certain leaders believed authorities were getting dangerously close. Meetings had become more frequent. Communication had increased. People were discussing contingency plans. The statement caught investigators' attention. Contingency plans suggested preparation. Preparation suggested concern. and concern suggested pressure. The investigation was having an impact. The source then shared another detail, one that immediately raised alarms. According to his information, some gang members believed additional violence might become necessary, not because they wanted it, because they believed it would protect the organization. Investigators understood the implication immediately. If leadership felt threatened, witnesses and potential informants could face increased risk. The situation became more urgent. Protective measures expanded, monitoring increased, additional intelligence resources were assigned. The goal was simple: prevent further violence. Yet everyone involved understood the difficulty. Federal prisons are complex environments. Control exists, but it is never absolute. Even the best security systems have limits. Even the most experienced investigators cannot predict every action. That reality weighed heavily on the people working the case. As night fell over the prison, investigators reviewed everything they had learned: the murder, the coded messages, the hidden weapons, the national gang connections, the leadership structure, the witness statements. The evidence pointed in one direction, toward a powerful network determined to preserve its influence, a network that extended beyond prison walls, a network capable of reaching into multiple institutions, and a network that might still be planning its next move. Then, just before midnight, an urgent report arrived. A correctional officer had discovered evidence suggesting a planned disturbance inside the prison. The details were incomplete, but one thing was clear: the danger was not over. In fact, it might be escalating. And what investigators uncovered next would reveal just how fragile order could become inside America's toughest federal prisons. The report arrived shortly before midnight. A correctional officer working inside one of the prison's housing units noticed unusual activity. At first, it seemed minor. A few inmates moving between cells more frequently than normal, several quiet conversations ending the moment staff approached, groups gathering briefly, then separating. None of these actions violated prison rules by themselves, but together they created concern. Experienced officers understand something important. Major prison disturbances rarely happen without warning. There are signs, small signs, subtle changes, unusual behavior, increased tension. The challenge is recognizing those signs before violence begins. That night, officers believed they were seeing them. The information was immediately passed to supervisors. Within minutes, intelligence staff began reviewing recent reports. As they compared notes, a troubling picture emerged. Several confidential sources had reported similar concerns. Different housing units, different inmates, different details, yet all pointed toward the same possibility. Something was being planned. Nobody knew exactly what, but the prison's leadership could not ignore the warnings. Additional security measures were implemented immediately. Extra officers were assigned to critical areas. Movement restrictions increased. Searches intensified. Emergency response teams were placed on standby. The atmosphere inside the prison changed overnight. Everyone felt it. Inmates, staff, investigators. The tension was becoming impossible to ignore. By sunrise, rumors were spreading throughout the institution. Some inmates believed gang leaders were preparing a coordinated protest. Others feared large-scale violence. Many simply stayed quiet. In prison, uncertainty often creates more fear than confirmed danger. People imagine worst-case scenarios, and sometimes those scenarios become reality. As investigators examined intelligence reports, they noticed another disturbing trend. Several gang-affiliated inmates had recently refused routine assignments. Others appeared unusually focused on gathering information about staff schedules. A few were asking questions about officer movement patterns. Individually, these details seemed insignificant. Together, they raised serious concerns. Prison administration began preparing for multiple possibilities. They hoped the intelligence was wrong. They hoped the concerns were exaggerated, but experience taught them otherwise. Ignoring warning signs could be disastrous. The prison administration decided to act aggressively. Housing units associated with known gang activity were searched again.
Officers examined every possible hiding place: mattresses, vents, light fixtures, storage areas. The discoveries reinforced existing fears. The prison was not simply dealing with isolated misconduct. There appeared to be coordination, planning, structure. Investigators continued following every lead. Then they received another important piece of information. A confidential source claimed several gang leaders were angry about recent lockdowns. According to the source, leadership believed authorities were disrupting their operations. Communication had become difficult. Contraband movement had slowed. Certain members had been transferred. Others had been placed in segregation. Pressure was building. The source described heated discussions, arguments, frustration, growing concern. Most importantly, he described a belief among some gang members that prison staff were responsible for their problems. That detail worried investigators. When frustration focuses on authority figures, the risk of confrontation increases. Correctional officers understood the danger. Many had worked in prisons for decades. They knew how quickly situations could change. One moment, a housing unit could appear calm. The next, it could become dangerous. That reality shaped every decision they made. Meanwhile, the murder investigation continued. Evidence kept pointing toward organized gang involvement. The victim's death appeared increasingly connected to broader efforts to maintain control. Every new discovery supported that theory. Yet, investigators still lacked one critical element: direct evidence linking leadership to the execution. Without it, important questions remained unanswered. As pressure mounted, another unexpected development occurred. A correctional officer intercepted a conversation between two inmates. The exchange lasted only seconds. Most of it seemed meaningless, but one phrase stood out: "The old rules are changing." The statement puzzled investigators. What did it mean? Who was changing the rules, and why? The questions lingered. Days later, additional intelligence provided context. According to several sources, divisions were beginning to emerge within certain gang groups. Not everyone agreed with recent decisions. Not everyone supported escalating violence. Some members believed the murder had attracted too much attention. Others feared additional investigations. The disagreements created tension, and tension inside organized groups can be dangerous. Historically, internal conflicts often produce unpredictable outcomes. Sometimes they lead to cooperation with authorities. Sometimes they lead to retaliation. Sometimes they lead to more violence. Investigators watched carefully. The possibility of fractures within gang leadership created opportunities. People who feel isolated sometimes become willing to talk. People who feel betrayed sometimes reveal secrets. The challenge was identifying those individuals before others reached them first. As the days passed, prison staff remained on high alert. Emergency response teams practiced deployment procedures. Supervisors reviewed contingency plans. Medical staff prepared for potential emergencies. Nobody wanted a crisis. Everyone wanted stability. Yet preparation remained necessary because uncertainty continued growing. Then came a significant event. A scheduled recreation period was canceled after intelligence suggested possible violence. The decision frustrated many inmates. Some complained openly, others remained silent. Gang-affiliated groups appeared particularly unhappy. Officers closely monitored reactions. Fortunately, no major incident followed, but the cancellation highlighted an important reality. Authorities were taking the threat seriously, very seriously. The prison was operating under constant pressure. Every decision carried consequences. Every action was carefully considered. Meanwhile, outside agencies continued assisting the investigation. Analysts reviewed communication records from multiple federal facilities. Connections strengthened. Patterns became clearer. The network investigators suspected appeared increasingly real and increasingly influential. Then came another breakthrough. A newly analyzed communication linked several previously disconnected individuals. The connection suggested coordination between inmates housed in different institutions. Not direct communication, indirect communication. Messages passing through intermediaries, associates, contacts, trusted individuals. The discovery supported long-standing concerns about gang influence across the federal system. More importantly, it helped investigators
identify potential leadership figures, people whose names appeared repeatedly throughout the investigation, people whose influence seemed larger than their official prison status suggested. The focus of the investigation began narrowing. The list of possible decision-makers became smaller. Investigators felt closer than ever to identifying who approved the execution. But they also understood the risk. The closer they moved toward the truth, the greater the possibility of resistance. History had shown this many times. Organizations under pressure often become unpredictable. People facing exposure sometimes make desperate choices. Inside federal prisons, desperate choices can have deadly consequences. Late one evening, as investigators reviewed reports, another urgent message arrived. A confidential source claimed a meeting had recently occurred involving several influential gang members. The purpose remained unclear, but one detail stood out. According to the source, participants discussed protecting the structure. Investigators had seen that phrase before, again and again, in letters, in notes, in intelligence reports. It appeared repeatedly, and every appearance seemed connected to maintaining power, maintaining authority, maintaining control. The phrase had become one of the most important clues in the entire investigation. Now it had surfaced once more, and this time investigators believed it might lead directly to the people they were searching for. The people who operated behind the scenes. The people who rarely appeared in reports. The people who benefited most from silence. As the prison settled into another tense night, investigators prepared for the next phase of their case. The evidence was building. The network was becoming visible. The leadership structure was beginning to emerge. But what they were about to discover would reveal something even more troubling, because the organization behind the execution was not focused only on controlling inmates. According to new intelligence, it may have been generating money as well, large amounts of money. And following that trail would expose a hidden economy operating behind bars, a secret business worth risking lives to protect. For most people on the outside, prison seems simple. The gates close, the walls stand tall, the inmates remain inside, and life appears completely controlled. But investigators knew the reality was far more complicated. Behind locked doors and razor wire fences, entire underground economies can exist. Money still moves, debts still exist, power still has value, and in many cases, violence becomes a tool used to protect those interests. As investigators continued examining the murder case, they began noticing something unexpected: financial connections, not official bank accounts, not legal businesses, hidden transactions, informal systems, networks operating in the shadows. The discovery added a completely new layer to the investigation. The victim's death may not have been connected solely to loyalty or gang discipline. Money might have played a role as well, a significant role. The possibility immediately caught investigators' attention, because throughout prison history, financial disputes have often fueled violence. The more money involved, the greater the risk. The prison's intelligence team began reviewing reports related to contraband operations. Contraband can include many things: unauthorized communication devices, tobacco, illegal substances, stolen property, or other prohibited items. Such operations create demand. Demand creates profit, and profit attracts organized groups. Federal prisons work constantly to stop contraband. Many attempts are successful, yet the challenge never completely disappears.
Whenever there is value, people find ways to exploit it. Investigators noticed that several individuals connected to the murder case had also appeared in reports involving underground prison commerce. The connection was difficult to ignore. The same names surfaced repeatedly. Not enough to prove wrongdoing, but enough to raise questions. Questions investigators intended to answer. As they dug deeper, confidential sources provided additional information. Several described gang-controlled systems operating inside certain housing units. According to these accounts, some organizations maintained influence over gambling activities. Others controlled access to specific goods. Some enforced debt collection. Most of these claims were difficult to verify completely, yet the overall pattern remained consistent. Power and money often moved together. The relationship was impossible to ignore. One former investigator later explained it clearly. Violence gets attention. Money explains motivation. That statement stayed with the investigative team because motivation remained one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the murder. Why had the victim become a target? What exactly had placed him in danger? And who benefited from his removal? The answers seemed increasingly connected to control. Control over information, control over people, control over resources. The more investigators learned, the more interconnected everything appeared. Then another confidential source came forward. The inmate requested immediate protection before speaking. That request alone suggested the information was serious. The meeting took place in a secure location, away from other inmates, away from gang influence, away from potential retaliation. The source appeared nervous, extremely nervous. His eyes constantly scanned the room. His hands trembled slightly. When he finally began talking, investigators listened carefully. According to the source, several disputes had occurred before the murder. Not public disputes, private ones. Arguments involving money, arguments involving responsibility, arguments involving trust. The source did not claim direct knowledge of the murder plot, but he believed tensions had been building long before the attack occurred. His account matched information gathered elsewhere, different witnesses, different facilities, different sources, yet many described similar problems. Pressure, conflict, distrust. The environment appeared increasingly unstable. As investigators organized the information, they identified several key themes: leadership, loyalty, communication, money. Each theme appeared repeatedly throughout the case. Each seemed connected to the others. The murder no longer looked like a single act of violence. It appeared to be the result of multiple pressures converging at the same time. The realization changed how investigators viewed the entire case. Meanwhile, prison staff continued dealing with daily challenges. The lockdowns had reduced some risks, but they also created frustration. Many inmates had spent weeks under tighter restrictions. Movement remained limited. Privileges were reduced. Normal routines were disrupted. The tension was noticeable. Officers reported increased complaints, increased arguments, increased anxiety. None of these developments were surprising. Extended restrictions affect everyone inside a prison, staff and inmates alike. Yet, despite the pressure, officials believed the precautions remained necessary. Too many questions remained unanswered. Too many risks remained unresolved. Then another important discovery occurred. Analysts reviewing communication records identified several references to what appeared to be financial obligations. The language was coded, indirect, difficult to interpret, but intelligence specialists believed certain phrases referred to debts, overstanding debts, unresolved debts, debts significant enough to generate concern.
The discovery strengthened existing theories. Financial pressure may have contributed to the environment that ultimately produced violence. Investigators could not yet prove it, but the possibility became increasingly difficult to dismiss. At the same time, intelligence reports suggested some gang leaders were struggling to maintain authority. The investigation had disrupted communication. Transfers had separated key individuals. Searches had uncovered contraband. Protective custody placements had removed potential targets. The system was under strain, and strained systems often reveal weaknesses. Several confidential sources described growing disagreements among members. Some questioned leadership decisions. Others worried about increased attention from authorities. A few reportedly feared additional arrests or transfers. These divisions interested investigators. Internal conflict often creates opportunities. Organizations function best when members trust leadership. When trust weakens, information sometimes emerges. Investigators hoped that might happen, but they understood the risks. People caught between loyalty and self-preservation often face difficult choices. Some remain silent, others cooperate. Many struggle with the decision. Inside prison, those choices can have lasting consequences. Weeks passed. The investigation continued expanding. Federal agencies shared intelligence. Analysts compared reports from institutions across the country. The network became clearer, the connections became stronger, and the evidence became harder to ignore. The murder appeared increasingly tied to a larger organizational structure, one built on influence, authority, communication, and possibly money. Then, investigators received a report that changed the direction of the case once again. A search conducted at another federal institution uncovered documents linked to individuals already under investigation. The documents contained coded references, names, numbers, locations. Most importantly, they appeared connected to communication channels operating across multiple prisons. The discovery was significant, very significant. For months, investigators had suspected coordination. Now they had evidence supporting that suspicion. The network was real, and it extended farther than many initially believed. The findings triggered renewed efforts. Additional interviews were conducted, additional records were reviewed, additional intelligence resources were assigned. The case had become a national priority within correctional intelligence circles, not simply because of one murder, but because of what that murder revealed. A glimpse into a system operating largely out of public view, a system capable of influencing events inside some of America's toughest federal prisons. As investigators pushed forward, another concern emerged: the possibility that someone involved in the network had become aware of the investigation's progress. The thought worried officials, because awareness can change behavior. People under pressure adapt. They hide evidence, change routines, modify communication methods. Sometimes they become desperate. Investigators knew time mattered. Every day counted. Every lead mattered. Every piece of information could be important. Late one evening, a senior intelligence officer reviewed the latest reports. One detail stood out immediately. Several independent sources had recently mentioned the same location, a location inside the prison, a location believed to be used for important gang meetings. The references were vague, but consistent. The officer highlighted the information and forwarded it to investigators. The next morning, plans began forming. If the intelligence was accurate, the location could contain evidence capable of revealing who truly controlled the organization, evidence capable of identifying the people behind the execution, evidence capable of connecting months of investigation into a complete picture. But searching the location would not be simple. The risks were considerable, the potential consequences even greater, because if investigators found what they suspected, the entire case could change overnight. And if gang leaders learned authorities were closing in, Their response might be unpredictable. As preparations began, one thing became clear. The investigation was approaching a turning point, a moment that could either expose the truth or push the prison toward another wave of violence. And somewhere behind the walls, powerful individuals were already making plans of their own. By the beginning of the next week, investigators were preparing for one of the most important operations of the entire case. For months, they had been chasing rumors, following coded messages, interviewing frightened inmates, analyzing intelligence reports from prisons across the country. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle had fallen into place. Now they believed they had found something tangible, a location, a place repeatedly mentioned by confidential sources, a place where important conversations allegedly occurred, a place connected to some of the most influential gang members inside the prison. If the information was accurate, the search could reveal critical evidence. If it was wrong, months of work could lead nowhere. The pressure was enormous. Investigators reviewed every report one final time. The references were subtle. No source described the location directly. No one openly admitted what happened there. Yet the descriptions shared common details: the same area, the same inmates, the same unusual patterns. Individually, the reports meant little. Together, they suggested something important. The operation was approved. Early the next morning, before most inmates were awake, officers moved into position. Additional staff secured nearby housing units. Movement restrictions were temporarily expanded. Emergency response teams remained on standby. Officers wanted complete control of the situation. The location itself appeared ordinary. That was what made it effective. Nothing about it attracted attention. Nothing suggested it held significance. Yet intelligence indicated it may have played a key role in gang communications. Officers began a careful search. Every inch was examined. Walls, floors, fixtures, storage areas. Nothing was overlooked. At first, they found very little: dust, old paperwork, routine maintenance materials. The search seemed disappointing. Some investigators worried the intelligence had been wrong. Then, an officer noticed something unusual. A panel appeared slightly different from the surrounding structure. The difference was small, easy to miss, but experienced officers learned to trust small details. The panel was removed. Behind it was a hidden compartment. The room immediately became silent. Inside the compartment, investigators discovered several items. Not weapons, not contraband, something potentially more valuable. Documents, notes, lists, records. Everything was carefully collected and secured. Nobody rushed to conclusions. The materials needed analysis, but everyone understood the importance of the discovery. This was the first time investigators had recovered hidden documents from a location specifically identified through intelligence sources. The find represented progress, real progress. The materials were transported to a secure office for examination. Analysts immediately went to work. Hours passed, then days. The process was slow. Many documents appeared coded. Others contained abbreviations and references investigators struggled to understand. But patterns soon emerged. Names appeared repeatedly. Specific inmates appeared again and again. Some were already known to investigators. Others were unfamiliar. The network continued expanding. As analysts translated portions of the material, several themes became clear: communication, discipline, organization, authority. The same themes that had appeared throughout the investigation, only now they appeared in written form. The significance was difficult to ignore. The documents suggested a structured system, not random behavior, not isolated incidents, a system, one designed to maintain control, one designed to preserve influence, one designed to survive pressure from authorities. The discovery energized the investigative team. For the first time, they felt closer to understanding how the organization operated. But the documents revealed something else, something unexpected: references to disputes among leadership. Internal disagreements, arguments over decisions, differences of opinion. The information surprised investigators. From the outside, prison gangs often appear unified, powerful, disciplined, yet the documents suggested a more complicated reality. Leaders disagreed, members argued, strategies were debated. Like any organization, internal conflict existed, and that conflict may have played a role in recent events. Investigators began examining the possibility. Could disagreements within leadership have contributed to the violence? Could the murder have been influenced by internal power struggles? The questions became a new focus. Meanwhile, word of the search spread quickly throughout the prison. Inmates talked, rumors multiplied, speculation increased. Nobody knew exactly what investigators had found, but everyone knew something significant had happened. Officers noticed changes almost immediately. Certain inmates appeared nervous, others became unusually quiet. A few requested transfers. Several suddenly refused to discuss subjects they previously talked about freely. The reactions attracted attention. People often reveal concern through behavior, and behavior can become evidence. The prison remained under heightened security. Additional searches continued. Communication monitoring intensified. Investigators followed every possible lead. Then another breakthrough occurred. One of the recovered documents appeared to reference a meeting held shortly before the execution. The wording was indirect, carefully written, but analysts believed the reference was significant.
The timing matched. The individuals mentioned matched, and several details aligned with information provided by confidential sources. For investigators, the discovery was important, not because it proved responsibility, because it supported existing theories. Independent sources, independent evidence, pointing toward the same conclusion. That consistency strengthened the case. As the investigation progressed, federal intelligence specialists became increasingly involved. Experts from multiple institutions reviewed the materials. Comparisons were made with previous gang investigations. Historical records were examined. Patterns emerged. The organizational methods appeared familiar, not identical, but familiar. Many prison gangs across the country rely on similar structures, chains of authority, rules, expectations, disciplinary systems. The documents appeared consistent with those concepts. The murder itself remained under investigation, yet investigators now viewed it within a broader context, a context involving power, control, communication, and organizational survival. The execution was no longer seen as a single act. It appeared connected to larger concerns, concerns extending beyond one inmate, beyond one prison, beyond one incident. That realization changed everything. Then came another major development. A confidential source requested an urgent meeting. The inmate insisted the information could not wait. Investigators arranged the interview immediately. When the source arrived, he appeared extremely anxious, more anxious than previous witnesses. His voice shook, his hands trembled. Several times he looked toward the door. Finally, he spoke. According to the source, leadership believed someone had compromised sensitive information. Not recently, months earlier. The concern had been growing for a long time. Suspicion had spread. Trust had weakened. Certain individuals had become targets. The murdered inmate was allegedly one of them. The statement aligned with many existing theories, but the source added something new, something investigators had never heard before. He claimed a specific leadership meeting occurred shortly before the execution, a meeting involving influential figures connected to multiple institutions. The source could not provide complete details,
but he believed important decisions were made during that discussion. The information immediately captured investigators' attention. If true, the meeting could represent a critical turning point, the moment when suspicion became action, the moment when plans moved forward, the moment when someone's fate was decided. Investigators worked quickly to verify the information. Records were reviewed. Intelligence reports were re-examined. Communication timelines were compared. The effort produced promising results. Several independent pieces of information appeared consistent with the source's claims. Not definitive proof, but enough to justify further investigation. The case was entering a new phase. For months, investigators had searched for connections. Now they were beginning to identify decision-making processes, the structure behind the violence, the people responsible for directing it. The findings remained incomplete, yet momentum was building. And the closer investigators came to identifying leadership, the greater the risks became. Because powerful organizations rarely remain passive when threatened, especially organizations built on secrecy. As another tense night settled over the prison, investigators reviewed the latest intelligence. The evidence was stronger than ever. The network was clearer than ever. The leadership structure was becoming visible. But one final challenge remained. They still needed evidence directly linking specific individuals to the decisions surrounding the execution. Without that evidence, the case remained unfinished. And what investigators would discover next might finally provide the answers they had been chasing from the very beginning. Because hidden inside newly recovered communications was a clue that could identify the person whose approval mattered most, the person many believed stood at the very top of the chain. For months, investigators had been asking the same question: who gave the order? The attackers were known. The victim was known. The network behind the violence was becoming clearer. But one critical piece remained missing: the person at the top, the individual whose approval carried weight throughout the organization, the individual many inmates feared but rarely discussed openly, the individual who seemed to exist in the background of every lead investigators followed. Now, for the first time, they believed they were getting close, very close. The breakthrough came from a combination of evidence: recovered documents, intelligence reports, communication records, confidential sources. No single piece solved the mystery alone, but together they created a picture investigators could no longer ignore. A particular name continued appearing, not directly, not openly, usually through references, indirect mentions, coded language. Yet the pattern was consistent. The same individual seemed connected to key decisions, key communications, key events. Analysts spent days reviewing the information. They compared timelines, cross-referenced records, examined historical intelligence. The deeper they looked, the stronger the connection appeared. The inmate was not housed in the prison where the murder occurred. In fact, he was located hundreds of miles away. Yet investigators suspected his influence reached far beyond the walls surrounding him. According to intelligence reports, he held a position of significant authority within the gang structure. Members respected him. Leaders consulted him. Decisions carried his influence. At least that was what the evidence suggested. The possibility fascinated investigators. Most people assume prison leadership exists only within a single facility. The reality can be more complicated. Influential inmates sometimes develop reputations that extend across multiple institutions. Their authority is not based on physical presence. It is based on status, history, connections, and perception.
The suspected leader appeared to possess all four. As analysts examined communication records, they noticed something else. Periods of increased gang activity often followed communications linked to individuals associated with him. The timing was not proof, but it was noteworthy. Again and again, patterns emerged. The same names, the same connections, the same organizational structures. Everything seemed to lead back toward a small group of influential figures. Investigators knew they needed more. Suspicion alone would never be enough. The case required evidence, reliable evidence, evidence capable of surviving intense scrutiny. That evidence began arriving from an unexpected source, a confidential informant. The inmate had cooperated previously. Information he provided had proven accurate. His credibility mattered. When he requested another meeting, investigators listened. The conversation lasted several hours. Much of the information concerned organizational structure, leadership relationships, communication methods. Nothing sensational, nothing dramatic, just details. The kind of details that help investigators understand complex systems. Then the informant discussed authority. Who influenced decisions? Who resolved disputes? Who people listened to when serious issues emerged? The answers attracted immediate attention. According to the source, major decisions rarely happened without consultation. Violence involving significant consequences often required approval from respected leadership figures. The source did not claim direct knowledge of the murder order, but he described a process involving communication, discussion, authorization. The description matched theories investigators had developed independently. That consistency strengthened confidence in the information. The investigation moved forward. Analysts worked around the clock. Evidence continued accumulating. And slowly, the events leading to the execution became easier to understand. The victim had entered a dangerous environment. Suspicion surrounded him. Trust had disappeared. Rumors spread. Pressure increased.
At some point, influential individuals apparently concluded he represented a problem. Whether that conclusion was accurate remained uncertain. Whether it was fair remained uncertain. But according to multiple sources, the decision had consequences. Serious consequences. The murder appeared increasingly connected to efforts aimed at preserving authority, maintaining discipline, preventing challenges, protecting organizational interests. The victim may have become an example, a warning, a symbol. The realization disturbed many investigators because it suggested the attack was not purely personal. It was strategic, calculated, intended to influence others. As the investigation expanded, federal agencies shared additional intelligence. Reports from other institutions revealed similar themes: control, loyalty, discipline, communication. The same concepts appeared repeatedly. The same methods appeared repeatedly. The same structures appeared repeatedly. The consistency was impossible to ignore. Then came another important development. Analysts reviewing newly recovered communications identified references to a meeting occurring shortly before the murder. The language was coded, indirect, carefully written, yet several details aligned with information already collected. The timing matched witness accounts, the participants matched intelligence reports, the context matched investigative theories. The meeting appeared increasingly important. Investigators believed decisions may have been discussed there, possibly even approved there. The possibility generated renewed urgency. Every detail was reviewed again. Every timeline was reconstructed. Every communication was analyzed. The process was exhausting, but necessary.
Complex investigations often require patience. The truth rarely appears at once. Instead, it emerges piece by piece, slowly, carefully, relentlessly. Meanwhile, life inside the prison remained tense. Lockdowns had eased somewhat. Certain restrictions were reduced, yet the atmosphere never fully returned to normal. Too much had happened. Too many people remained nervous. The murder still affected daily life. The investigation still affected daily life. Everyone understood that important questions remained unresolved. Officers felt the pressure. Inmates felt the pressure. Even administrators felt it. The case had become one of the most significant investigations the institution had faced in years. Then investigators received information that shifted attention once again. A confidential source reported increasing concern among gang leadership. Not concern about rivals, not concern about inmates, concern about investigators. The source claimed leaders believed authorities were assembling a clearer picture of organizational activities. That realization worried them. The information made sense. Months of searches, interviews, intelligence gathering, evidence collection. The pressure had been relentless. Organizations adapt under pressure, but adaptation has limits. Eventually, mistakes occur. Eventually, information slips through. Investigators hoped they were reaching that point. The source then shared one final observation. According to him, conversations among certain gang members had changed. The focus was no longer on the victim. The focus was on survival, protecting the organization, protecting leadership, protecting the structure. Investigators recognized that phrase immediately, protecting the structure. They had seen it repeatedly throughout the case, in letters, documents, interviews, intelligence reports. The phrase seemed to summarize everything: the violence, the secrecy, the communication network, the discipline, the fear. All of it appeared connected to preserving the organization. That realization helped explain the murder more clearly than ever before. The victim was not simply an individual. He became part of a larger struggle involving authority and control, a struggle hidden from public view, a struggle playing out behind prison walls. As investigators reviewed the evidence one final time, they understood something important. They may never uncover every detail. They may never know every conversation. They may never identify every participant. Complex organizations rarely reveal all their secrets. Yet the broader picture had emerged. The network existed. The communication channels existed. The leadership structure existed. And the murder appeared connected to all of it. Still, one chapter remained unwritten, the final chapter. The chapter that would determine what happened next. Would authorities successfully disrupt the network? Would leadership figures lose influence? Would violence decrease? Or would the organization simply adapt and continue operating? Those questions remained unanswered. But new intelligence arriving from multiple institutions suggested significant action was coming. Action designed to break communication networks, separate influential figures, and restore control. The investigation was approaching its conclusion, but the story of power, fear, and survival inside America's toughest federal prisons was far from over. The final phase of the investigation began quietly. No announcements, no public statements, just movement. Across multiple federal institutions, coordinated action was taken at the same time. High-risk inmates were transferred. Certain individuals were moved into stricter housing units. Communication access was restricted. Monitoring systems were upgraded. It was not one single event. It was a system-wide response designed to disrupt what investigators believed was a coordinated network operating behind the walls. Inside the prison where the murder had taken place, the changes were immediately noticeable. Inmates were moved without warning. Some were taken during the night, others during early morning hours. Hallways that were usually active became silent. Certain units suddenly felt empty. Other units became overcrowded. The balance inside the prison shifted, and everyone felt it. Investigators focused on securing the most important individuals connected to the case, those believed to have influence, those suspected of passing messages, those tied to leadership discussions. The goal was simple: break communication, separate influence, prevent coordination. But even as the operation unfolded, one truth became clear. Control inside a federal prison is never absolute. It can be strengthened, it can be weakened, but it is never permanent. As transfers continued, intelligence teams reviewed the results of months of work. The evidence had changed how officials viewed the murder. What began as a single violent incident had become something much larger, a window into how organized groups can function inside correctional systems, how influence can spread, how communication can survive restrictions, and how decisions made in hidden spaces can lead to real-world consequences. The victim's death was no longer viewed only as an isolated tragedy. It was part of a chain of events, a chain involving suspicion, pressure, communication, and organizational control. Investigators believed the killing served multiple purposes: punishment, warning, and reinforcement of authority.
But proving every detail remained difficult. Some questions would likely never have complete answers. That is the reality of prison investigations. Not everything is visible. Not everything is recorded. Not everything can be confirmed. Still, the investigation achieved something important. It exposed patterns that had previously been hidden. It revealed connections across institutions. It showed how influence can extend beyond physical walls. And it forced a closer look at how prison systems handle organized internal power structures. Inside the prison itself, life slowly began to stabilize. Lockdowns were gradually lifted. Movement restrictions eased. Routine activities resumed. But things did not return to normal. Not fully. The atmosphere had changed. Inmates remained cautious. Officers remained alert. Trust had been damaged. And in prison environments, trust is not easily rebuilt. Some inmates were never returned to general population. Others were transferred permanently. A few were placed under long-term observation. The system adjusted, slowly, carefully, and continuously. As for the investigation, it eventually reached a point where no new major evidence emerged. The leadership structure remained partially confirmed through intelligence. The communication network remained partially understood, and the individuals suspected of involvement remained under varying levels of scrutiny. But definitive proof for every connection remained elusive. That was expected. Complex prison networks rarely expose everything. They adapt, they shift, they evolve. What mattered most was the impact. The investigation disrupted communication. It increased monitoring. It led to structural changes in how intelligence was shared between institutions. And it forced correctional authorities to rethink how influence operates behind bars. For many officers involved, the case left a lasting impression. One investigator summarized it simply: in prison, you never see the full system. You only see pieces of it at a time. The murder that started everything was never forgotten. Not by staff, not by inmates, not by investigators.
It remained a reminder of how quickly violence can erupt inside controlled environments, and how many layers exist beneath a single moment of brutality. The yard attack that opened this case lasted only seconds, but what followed stretched across months of investigation, dozens of interviews, multiple institutions, hundreds of intelligence reports, and a growing understanding of how complex prison life can be. In the end, there was no simple explanation, no single cause, no single decision, only a combination of factors: fear, loyalty, power, communication, and survival. Inside America's toughest federal prisons, those forces shape daily life more than any written rule. They influence behavior, they determine safety, and sometimes they decide who lives and who does not. As the final reports were filed and the investigation formally concluded, one truth remained clear: there is no escape behind bars. Not from the system, not from influence, and not from consequences that begin long before a door ever closes. The story does not end with justice. It does not end with closure. It ends with understanding. A deeper understanding of a world most people will never see. A world where silence speaks louder than words, and where survival depends on knowing exactly who holds power. Inside those walls, every decision carries weight, every rumor has meaning, and every moment can change everything. This is the reality of life inside America's toughest federal prisons. And once you understand it, you never see the system the same way again. That's the reality of life behind prison walls. If this story opened your eyes, don't forget to stay connected. Subscribe for more true crime documentaries like this. Follow us for more untold stories from inside America's toughest prisons.